Just smile.
This is Psalm 19. The heavens are telling of the glory of God, and their expanse is declaring the works of his hands. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words, where their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their utterances to the end of the earth. In them he has placed a tent for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. It rejoices as a strong man to run his course. Its rising is from one end of the heavens, and its circuit to the other end of them, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. The law of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true, they are righteous altogether. They are more desirable than gold, yes, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey and the drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them your servant is warned. In keeping them there is great reward. Who can discern his errors? Acquit me of hidden faults. Also, keep back your servant from presumptuous sins. Let them not rule over me. Then I shall be blameless, and I shall be acquitted of great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Quite a while ago, probably 30 years ago or so, I was watching television, and a well-known TV personality, the name doesn't matter, he was interviewing a well-known evangelical personality, and his name doesn't matter either. But this well-known evangelical personality made a comment in the course of this television interview. He said, "God spoke to me." What he spoke to him regarding, that doesn't matter either. But the well-known TV personality says, "Do you mean to tell me that you actually hear from God? God actually talks to you?" And he said, "Well, yeah, and you know what is really amazing too is God speaks to you." That shouldn't be surprising. God speaks to everybody. So the question here is, and that is answered in this Psalm 19, do we receive communication from God? And the answer is yes, in a number of different ways. Also, quite a while ago, I think it was 1997, a movie came out with Jodie Foster called Contact. I don't know if you remember that, but the paradigm of the movie is that SETI, that is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, begins to receive some mathematically coded data. In the end, I think in the movie they received something like 63,000 pages of this mathematically coded data that turned out to be a set of instructions for building some sort of transport machine. And, you know, if you remember the movie, it, got kind of weird at the end, but the question arises, if we were to receive mathematically coded data from space for building some kind of complex machine, would that be proof that there was an intelligence out there? And most people would say absolutely, because complex data communicated to us requires an intelligence behind it. And yet we have in every living cell of every living creature a complex set of instructions that far surpasses what they were talking about in the movie, much more than 63,000 pages. We live in the information age. You know, we have over the last 100 years or so, we've developed telephone and telegraph, and then all of a sudden jumped to computers and cell phones. Nobody would deny that these are products of intelligence. Bill Gates said that, in making a comparison here, he says DNA, the DNA molecule, is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software ever created. More than Apple computers or Microsoft or anything, the DNA molecule has vastly more information. And this intelligence behind this would indicate that there is an intelligent creator behind it. But this psalm is about communication, and it is a psalm of praise that God has made the universe for our benefit, but he has also given us some specific instructions. It says in 19:1, the heavens are telling of the glory of God, continuously, continuous action, telling, and their expanse is declaring the works of his hands. Day to day pours forth speech, language. Language implies intelligence. And night to night reveals knowledge. There is no language or speech where the voice is not heard. The line goes out through all the earth, and their utterances to the end of the world. In them he has placed a tent for the sun. Now, why does he mention that? Well, the sun was almost universally worshipped as a god, and here the psalmist is saying this is just part of God's creation. This is part of his communication to us. It says that the sun is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. It rejoices as a strong man to run his course. Its rising is from one end of the heavens, and its circuit to the other end of them, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. Energy from the sun is essential for all life upon the earth. This path that's mentioned is a description of the path that all of the heavenly bodies traverse as they go about this path in the heavens. Now, Paul quotes this psalm in Romans 1:20. He says, "For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes," notice three things: God's invisible attributes, his eternal power, and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. The they is everybody. All of us are without excuse because we can clearly see that there is communication coming to us by a cosmic intelligence. We can see that. Some people have tried to solve the problem by saying, well, the intelligence out there is, spacemen. That they created DNA in their labs and they dropped it on the Earth somehow and just left it alone to grow. The problem is, who created them? Who created the spacemen? Nobody seems to want to answer that question. But seeing the intelligence behind the creation makes us without excuse. We have a responsibility in this matter. And we can say that there is something that can be learned about a building, right, from or something that can be learned about a builder from the building that he has made. But Romans goes on to say, for even though they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in their speculations, and their foolish heart was darkened. That seems to refer to almost everybody who has ever lived, even the people who have been the recipients of God's special law. But even if all we had was the creation, if we were good, if we were responsible, we would be able to discern what kind of God created the heavens and the earth, and our foolish hearts would not be darkened. We would be able to worship the true God. But unfortunately, we're not. So he goes on. There is another communication from God. Verse 7, he says, the law of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. Now, by law, we mean the totality of Scripture, not just the Mosaic Law. In John 10:34, Jesus was disputing with the scribes and Pharisees, and he says, has it not been written in your law? I said, you are gods. Law here, he quotes from the Psalms. So Jesus is putting his approval, so to speak, on the fact that the law is the totality of Scripture. But the law of the Lord is perfect, restoring or reviving or refreshing the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. So we can receive wisdom. It says, the precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart, rejoicing to know what God's mind is. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. Enlightening is understanding, which is God's gift to us, understanding who he is, what he does. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The fear is the reverential trust. And it is clean because it engenders in us clean living. By understanding God, we want to live rightly. The judgments of the Lord are true. They are righteous altogether. We cannot stand in judgment of God. He is the standard by which we are judged. C.S. Lewis wrote an essay called God in the Dock. Modern man wants to judge God. We want to judge God based upon certain things that are written in the Bible, like, things like where it says if a man has an unrighteous and rebellious son, he can grab a hold of him and take him to the priest. Of course, the mother has to agree to this. And if the priest agrees, then the mother and father are to take up stones and stone him. We want to judge God based upon that kind of thing. And yet, if you really look at it, you see that it is completely righteous. Mother and father have to agree. The priest has to agree. And then the mother and father are the ones that need to pick up rocks and stone their son. Evidently, that never happened in the history of Israel. But the fact is that people want to go through the Bible and find reasons to judge God. But it says here that these things are more desirable than gold, yes, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey in the drippings of the honeycomb. All of these things are better than anything the world has to offer. Moreover, by them your servant is warned or informed. In keeping them there is great reward. He finishes asking, who can discern his errors? A rhetorical question. God has no errors. God is totally righteous. And then he appeals to God, equip me of hidden faults. Also keep back your servant from presumptuous sins. So we have hidden faults, we have presumptuous sins. He says, let them not rule over me. Then I will be blameless, and I shall be acquitted of great transgression. Even here we see God's grace. Sins are acknowledged. It is acknowledged that the writer is not perfect. He needs God's acquittal. He says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my Redeemer. And the fact is, we need a Redeemer because we are not perfect. God is. In Hebrews, it says that God, after he spoke long ago to the fathers, in the prophets, in many portions, in many ways. Once again, an acknowledgement that God communicates with us for our instruction. He says, in these last days has spoken to us in his Son. So God speaks to us in the creation. God speaks to us in the law. And in these last days he has spoken to us in the Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, through whom also he made the world. The law is perfect, but it's inadequate because not because of any fault of the law or shortcoming, but because of the fault and shortcomings of ourselves. But the law informs us that God is holy and righteous, and that we are not. And the fact is, we need a Redeemer. Ephesians tells us that it is by grace we are saved, through faith. It's not of ourselves. But that's the difficult part for a lot of people. They think, well, there must be something I need to do to affect my own salvation. It can't be just a gift. And yet, that is really the teaching of the entire Bible, that the law is perfect. We are not. We need a Redeemer. And our redemption has been accomplished, predicated upon the sacred blood of Christ on the cross. For us to say there's something more that I need to add to that is approaching blasphemy. It is truly God's great gift to us. Amen.